Good now and welcome to BetaCodex Live. My name is Ryan Erickson. I am here to host a conversation today about the topic of optimize or transform. Very interesting conversations that have come up around that in the past couple of weeks. And today, in addition to this person I will bring on the screen right now, Niels Flagging. Hello, Niels.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Ryan.
Hello. And Niels, we have a guest today.
We have a very special guest whom I fell in love with a couple of months ago when I noticed that he had done such great podcast episodes, recordings. He has a great newsletter as well. He writes very smartly, very cleverly, with very witty stuff. So yes.
All right. Well, without further ado, we'll bring onto the stage Drew Weilage. Hello.
Hey, Ryan. Hi, Niels.
Hi.
Hello. From Denver, Colorado, by the way. We just
noticed. And I appreciate. Yeah, I'm from Denver, and I appreciate the kind words on the newsletter. But I'm also asking, how couldn't you love it? You know, because I think the source material is much of Niels' musings, and so I've so appreciated how you've helped me, transform my thinking on a lot of organizing of organizations topics. So it's great to be with you. Hey, and Ryan, I think you were about to say, how do you pronounce that name? And it's you were very close. It's Drew Weilage, which is the Americanized version of the German pronunciation of Weilage. But hey, I'm really happy to be with you, and obviously have gotten to watch several of your BetaCodex live episodes, and appreciate the conversations that the two of you have been having, and so I'm excited to be part of it today.
Well, great, Drew. I'll put the spotlight on you here in a minute. Niels, did you want to say a word to Drew before I allow him to do a little solo up front?
Not sure how we start this. Drew, thank you for accepting this invitation. As I said, when I listened to those podcast recordings, which are on Spotify, I think, a few of them.
Yeah. Yep.
And you did a review of my book, and I thought, wow, this man has understood my book better than I did. And so beautifully described. And I mean, and it may sound
aggrandizing,
referential, or like I'm talking about somebody who, of course, your review is very positive, but most of all, it's thoughtful, it's reflective, it gives an idea of the content, and I love that. Not the mere fact that you like my book, which would be stupid thing to say, but really, I thought, okay, this is the most beautiful reflection. I played it to Silke. She said, "Oh my God, this is wonderful. It's beautiful." Oh yeah, and your other content, I noticed that you think very much in similar lines, and I enjoy that. Tell me a little bit about your website. It's called
Worthy Work,
and it's a worthy website about worthy work.
Exactly. Worthywork.work is my website address, and my audience is generally healthcare pros, is what I call them. So folks working in the especially industrialized American healthcare delivery system, and I also for my full-time job work in that healthcare delivery system. So I know a lot about it from the inside. And I think where I came to your work, Niels, was being in a role that was especially Tayloresque,
Yes.
Command and control all over the place, and it created this question in my mind of like, why is work the way it is, right? Why, especially in a place where so many people work with purpose, why do we wear people down and wear them out? And I came across Organizing for Complexity, at that very critical moment when I was trying to figure things out and doing my own exploration of what the heck's going on, right? And so your book obviously opened up my eyes to what was happening, and it was nice to be able to point a finger at the system instead of wondering what the heck's wrong with me. And of course, there might be something wrong with me too, and maybe the integration between the two and all of that. But it was nice to have an answer. And anyway, that set me down this path of organizational development, and that's why we're here. So when I have an opportunity, I do like to write at Worthy Work, and I like to write for the newsletter, and maybe someday I'll get back to the podcast too.
Yeah, I hope there's much more content coming from you. Today's edition of your newsletter talks of how the Toyota production system came about, a little bit, and a reflection about why, of course, Lean is not a thing to implement or copy or toolify or to implement.
Yeah,
I think you use those words as well. Very, very nicely. Well, you're one of the best writers in the field, I think. I
appreciate that high praise.
I would love, I told you this in a private message, I would love to see you doing stuff for and with the BetaCodex network. We will see where this is getting. This is like the starting, our first conversation as well, right?
Exactly.
Decent.
Yeah. You know, and I think I really feel like I passed like a Niels hurdle, right? Because I wrote something on LinkedIn and I got a Niels message. And, you know, like you, Ryan, you know,
a direct message.
Well, the direct message is good, but I had a comment that I made, or I posted something, and Neil's like, "Yeah, this is great, but you know, essentially wrong, you know, in only a way that Niels can." And I have so appreciated the candor, right? You know, I think Ryan, you and I were talking a little bit about our Midwest dispositions and backgrounds, and sometimes we don't have the candor that we need to have about topics like this. And one of the things that's attracted me to Niels' thinking is the candor with which he discusses these topics. And I felt so good about it because it allows me to learn, right? And in that moment, you know, when I think in some ways when I'm writing for the audience of Niels to probe him a little bit and see what he has to say.
That's an interesting thought. Okay. By the way, Drew, did you already get into W. Edwards Deming's books or work? Did you study that?
I haven't studied a lot of. I know. You know, obviously know of Deming. Early on in my healthcare career, worked in quality actually, and Deming shows up there all the time. But one of the recent episodes that I was watching was your all's discussion on Deming. And I was like, oh yeah, I think Niels has a book, so I guess I got to put that in my cart and get it shipped. Yeah,
you should, and not again, I'm not saying this for propaganda reason. You can get this book or my book of quotes or other books, of course. Or it's very worth it, I think, because and the videos on YouTube are wonderful as well. The Deming interviews and speeches. I think Ryan, you watched a ton of that as well.
Oh my gosh, yes, it's fantastic. And the Deming, the Deming Institute, or the whole organization that he has said that puts out some great stuff. Absolutely.
Yes, the Deming Institute is led by W. Edwards Deming's grandson and his wife. So, and they really maintain a very good standard and publish photos. And so I got the photos for the quote books from them and so on. I dabbled a little with coloring the photos. If you take a look at the BetaCodex website, Drew, you might figure that out. It's very interesting because today you posted about Toyota getting to becoming Toyota.
Yes.
Becoming lean.
Yes.
And in your newsletter, you kind of do not mention that, of course, Deming and the quality movement were an influence into that. Not quality movement is the wrong word, but the Deming thinking. It was a big influence. And became very influential in the first years of Toyota developing the Toyota way. So very interesting connection. And of course, the candor. You mentioned the candor, which I sometimes exaggerate, I think, on admittedly. Yes, admittedly.
Yeah.
But I think Deming did that so well. He was a little bit older. I hope that when I get older in the film, it would sound nicer,
Yeah.
More Deming-esque, the voice as well. We get grumpy. I will get grumpy and grumpy.
The lean conversation is such a good one because so many people understand it, right? I think especially in healthcare, and where a quality movement has come about in the last couple of decades, people understand what we're talking about when we talk about lean and when we talk about Deming, and I think it's such a good introduction of maybe our topic today, which is because the question is. Why don't we get as far as we want by just adopting somebody else's tools, right? And I think in the newsletter what I say is that you can't ignore context, and so often when we just take things off the shelf, we do that. So perhaps it was a perfect introduction to our topic.
Exactly. So why do agile efforts fizzle out? Why do lean efforts fizzle out? Why do change efforts fizzle out? Why do we fuck around so much and don't get anywhere? very candid, as always, and unscripted.
Yeah.
So you knew what you were getting into.
Definitely,
So,
yes, definitely.
So by the way, that means monetization of this whole series of videos is not going to happen on the YouTube platform. So
I was hoping for that.
No, it's millions of dollars, right? It's coming in. No, this is, and we're yeah.
So no royalties for showing
No
up.
royalties.
And no royalties for
that
showing
part
up here.
wasn't part of the
Although they
invitation.
although they will take money from you if you put in actual copyrighted music. So that happened with one of my other things. So be that as it may, okay, you optimize or transform. What does that mean to you? And then we can kind of riff on that.
Yeah, Drew, you want to give it a start?
Yeah, yes, transformation, right? And Niels talks about this too. Transformation is more of a corporate buzzword probably than anything else today. And of course
right?
It has become, yes. And there might be nothing more important from what organizations should be doing based upon how often our world is changing, how many new problems exist every day, right? We're trying to dispose of industrialized thinking and move in to something more holistic as we organize our organizations. And I think for me, where this topic struck was so often what we're doing is labeling optimization efforts on how we've always done things as transformation. Yes. And very likely where the invitation to come on today's show with you came was me asking Niels about starting conditions, and how could you sort of get people to think differently when all they've ever known is Taylor's scientific management and the systems that have evolved because of that. And of course, Niels sent me a very interesting paper that I consumed very quickly. And it was nice to see a lot of inspiration for your own thinking coming out of that paper. And the idea now is that we need to transform right into starting conditions that are beta and move away from alpha and not just optimize alpha. And I am curious then, where do we get from an optimization perspective once we've made the transformation?
And that last point, what do you mean by that? I didn't quite.
Well, I think I guess what I'm comparing is how we make transformation activities often in organizations. We make transformation activities more optimization than they are actually transformational. And my sense is that maybe optimization in Deming's view comes once we've made the switch to beta.
So that implies a little bit of the Kurt Levine thing, that the freeze, unfreeze, freeze thing again. So that transformation is something that you intentionally do and then it happens, right? So there's an end, possibly. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, or or you build that. So please go ahead.
I would like to make a step back, Drew. When you started talking about that the meaning of the word transformation has been in decline for a decade, maybe. When change management died 10 years ago, nobody wanted to use the term change anymore. Now every silly bit of change is called transformation. I once met, I wrote this in an article. I once met a 27-year-old consultant who told me she had accompanied so many transformations and something didn't add up, the age and, transform. No, I mean, what improvement, development, what did she mean? Change? Probably all of that, but, transformation we can only give back a meaning to the term transformation if we distinguish it from optimization. That's the suggestion in this title, and I think it's a very important distinction. If we want to talk about transformation, first we have to distinguish it from optimization. And most tools, processes, you talked about this in today's newsletter text as well. Fooling around, dabbling, experimenting, that's all on the optimization side. Yes. Also very useful stuff like Kaizen is on that side. You can Kaizen, you have to Kaizen a lot, improve a lot at Toyota. Improvement, optimization is very important. unless you really have to overcome your system unless something has really changed. And
Yeah.
as long as organizations are in alpha mode, they are just what are they?
Shit.
Doomed. Thank you. Again,
Yeah.
the monetization.
Yeah.
Just fuck the monetization thing. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I think you're 100% right, and where my question comes is, how do we help people realize that the system is wrong, that the system is doomed, and in many ways, I guess that's the whole point of your work, right? Is to help folks make that realization. And does it come from does it come from an exploration like the one that I had, where I'm like, this can't be how it's supposed to be? What is going wrong, right? And then you get exposed to McGregor, and you're like, oh, there's an alternative, right? And there's this David Foster Wallace commencement speech where he opens it up by telling a little story about two fish swimming in water, and they're swimming along, and they pass an old fish, and the old fish gives them a head nod, and he asks the two young fish, "Hey boys, how's the water?" And they swim on a little bit longer, and one of them turns to the other and he says, "What's water?"
Mm-hmm.
And I think that for me, that describes where so many of us are, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I say we because I'm still recovering in a lot of ways, and have continued to spend time in tayloristic organizations, taylorized organizations, and for us to get to transformation, I think we need like a collective realization that what this is might not be right.
Well, as a society of work and workers, as a group of consultants and managers and folks who live and breathe and have membership in organizations, yes, that's the we you're talking about. I think beyond that, and I think that came up when you're talking about that, Drew, is that if you've been educated, you've been trained and programmed into alpha thinking, but once you see beta and once you understand that, you can't unsee it, and that in every bit and every piece of the language of beta that you learn and have that in your vocabulary and the conceptual side, it almost becomes more frustrating. It's like I wish it like
keeps you up at night.
It's the curse of knowledge or whatever. But so that's very, very interesting. You can't see it. How does that play? So Niels, where are you with that?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, one thing is to recognize that something more substantial than optimization, new tools, improvements, dabbling with processes is needed. Something more than just flirting with a different way. That's why in Germany we had this wave called New Work, which wasn't about new work. It was just about optimizing things. Like, oh, can you work from home? And can you this ongoing discussion that we still have about hybrid work? It's all bullshit discussions, really, because they are about improvement, right? They are not change. We're not. We of course it's much easier to improve within the ways we think. But to believe what we think is very easy. To doubt what we think is a little harder. Tools are easy to take. To buy McKinsey is easy, which doesn't automatically make tools and McKinsey bad. But if you need something more profound, something deeper, a change of thinking patterns, then you should opt for different methodologies. Simply, yeah? Or like Taiichi Ono said at Toyota, the end of the change is the tool. He called it, I think, crystallization, or let's say the industrialization of the thinking leads to a tool at Toyota as well, or a practice or a process. But before that, you have to maneuver the thinking, and abstain from crystallizing the thinking into stuff. So first the thinking, then the crystallization. If you turn it around, if you buy the tools, try to implement tools, you're just a tool head, as John Seddon said. Yeah. So this is the different path goes through the path of transformation, not optimization, goes through changing your thinking, our belief systems first. And that requires didactics. It requires different didactics. It requires, producing insight, and we're not strong. And of course, Drew, we had this little written exchange in which you kind of insisted that this cannot work in my industry, my hospital, my healthcare system. And I kind of, as I always do, kind of insisted a little bit. Of course it would work. Of course it would work.
Yeah. It'll never work if you don't believe it will.
Of course, you first have to believe yourself that others can do it as a system. And that's a tough line to cross, I think. The first is to believe it for yourself. The second line is to believe that transformation is possible for an organization or an industry or a country.
Yes. Which is a problem, I guess, of the consultant, right? Where you can't. How do you help people realize they have a problem if they don't see they have a problem themselves? And I think that
yes,
Ryan, you're exactly right on the we've been part of these industrialized systems since like school age, right? And maybe even before, but like definitely from a school perspective. And so this goes back to the fact that we don't see any other way. And at the same time, what you were saying, Niels, is deeply, I think that people believe that there is a problem and there is a challenge, because some of these optimization activities that get labeled transformation are happening because people feel a tension that exists. But the playbook to draw on, and this is what I think our little exchange helped illustrate for me, is still tailored, right? It's still command and control. If you haven't changed your mind about the fact that there is an alternative.
It's Elton Mayo, right? It's helping folks feel better about Taylorism and
changing the condition within a system that sucks, right? A better light, better furniture, more beautiful, a little bit of music, and so improve the
foosball tables.
Beautify it.
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I think that the question at the core of the exchange was, does it require a benevolent person of authority? So I'm going to make sure I don't use the term leader here. A benevolent person in authority to say, we're going to do it differently, right? Is that how a transformation truly begins? And I guess the alternative would be something collective on the way up, but we probably haven't seen that as much in organizations.
Well, this is the question of sponsorship, right? Who's the sponsor? Who wants this stuff really bad? Who finds Niels? Who reads Organized for Complexity and saying, how do I make this happen? So unless you're having a reading party in your boardroom with Organized for Complexity, some one person reads it and says, hey, this is a good idea, right? Yeah. And this whole deal about Organized for Complexity, well, I'm a person with an idea. That's how you deal with stuff in the red. It's not, oh, I'm dealing with everything in the blue. So again, my answer to Drew's question, and I see you want to pop in there, Niels, is that it is, yes, a sponsor is there. A sponsor engages with the idea, and they really, really want it. Okay, so Mr. Flagging, what say you?
No, I mean, and we don't have to agree, right? The game, the game is not. We don't have to agree. We shall disagree. We are really bad at disagreeing, right? No. And we're not good at publicly disagreeing here. We don't find. But I try. I just ignore some of the stuff you just said.
No, that's fine. But that's a question we will get when I'm. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, please.
No. I think Drew tried to fuck us with his question already. This benevolent thing. That's a trap, right? Because there's nothing benevolent in beta. It's not a benevolent thing. It's like, the founding fathers in the United States, were they benevolent when they bestowed? What did they bestow upon us? Which document?
The Declaration of Independence.
The Philadelphia thing, right? And is that a benevolent idea? Well, you might say it's also the most selfish idea. Democracy is the most selfish idea in the world, in a way, right? Because it bestows freedom upon me as well. Democracy is not for the others or so. And I rather resist the idea that the sponsor in open space beta, or a sponsor in our open space beta work, or a person who transformed a company like Jan Wallander at Handelsbanken, or Jon de Blok at ProTalk, that they are benevolent people. I do not like they are not.
It's paternalist. It's paternalistic to say, "Oh, I'm."
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
And the first three letters of the Declaration of Independence are "We the people." It's not like I bestow thou with whatever it is.
Exactly. It's not the king bestows some form of justice or self-governance upon people. It's we the people. It's a different game. So the king must go, if there is one. Or you just throw the tea in the water. Was that it?
The Boston Tea Party. There you
go. No. Beta is not about benevolent leaders. It's about leadership for all. Power to the periphery. It's a different game. And of course, I always like to say that the sponsor or the CEO or whatever figure that is the biggest winner in it all. It's not about giving up power. This giving up power logic, it's a treacherous thing.
Well, it's about their authority doesn't diminish when you share it. Right, there's no generation loss to authority.
Yeah,
and
it's not a zero-sum game. Yeah, power in organizations is not a zero-sum game, as we like to. That's why org physics matters, to understand that there are three kinds of power. Hierarchy is overvalued, really.
Well, so if I can go again with
we don't have to agree, Drew. By the way, right?
Well, but before the fireworks light here on the top of the screen, I will say that again in a rereading of Organized for Complexity, that I said that we're talking about when does hierarchy happen, right? One thing that you said in there is that you create the hierarchy when you need it. I mean, and to me, I was thinking, well, what the fuck is he saying in that? Is that we have a group of folks who are in the sphere of activity. We're doing this work, and in the periphery, and the center serves that. Well, what needs to happen? What compliance need is there? What are we required to do in order to continue operating in the sphere of activity? Well, if we don't have a set hierarchy, a formal fixed thing in the center dictating to everybody, then what do? The concept was that the hierarchy is created when it's needed, and that's the positional formal domination hierarchy, compliance hierarchy. When you need the compliance, when you're required to have compliance, when you must comply to create compliance, then you create that to serve that need, so you continue operating. That was a brain breaker for me. So that's another piece of the beta puzzle that is forming in the head. So
I don't think it's that we necessarily disagree on, but I think usually I have a few minutes when responding to a LinkedIn message, to think about what do I think about this? And, there's concepts that you have to really process. And I think, Ryan, what my rejoinder is what happens when that hierarchy no longer is needed, right? And I think that a lot of the places that I have been, these hierarchies have existed in some cases hundreds of years, right? Depending on how far east you work in healthcare. And so perhaps benevolent people in authority. I'm not going to use the leader word.
The L word
is the L word isn't a thing. But at some point, somebody has to come through an individual transformation to say this isn't working for us anymore, right? And I think that is where. And I think in organizations like that, where hierarchy has persisted for decades and maybe needlessly at this point, not in certain areas, where do you get to that transition point to say we're gonna get rid of hierarchy, and not just make it a command and control edict like we've been doing?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about hospitals ultimately. When you talk about health organizations, you talk about hospitals. I had the pleasure of working in a hospital for 15 months during my civil service. I was very young, so it was kind of my first work, working in a hospital. And I noticed I worked in a surgery station in a larger hospital, and between the stations, between the areas in that hospital, it was clearly noticeable that of course, they always had these layers of doctors, for example, nurses, and I was like a civil service young boy. I was paria, not worth talking about, unqualified helper, right? But of course, among nurses there was a hierarchy, and among doctors there was the more famous hierarchy that everybody knows about. I'm not sure how it's called in English. Because
intern, resident, attending, and then you get into administration.
And then higher up.
Chief of surgery.
Chief, and then we called it Oberarzt.
Supervisor probably. Yeah.
Okay, so let's assume that these layers have to exist for compliance reasons. Yeah. So we in this hospital we had these Chefarzt is called in Germany.
Chief,
doctor,
right?
Ober doctor and station doctor or whatever, normal doctor or so. And then of course you have those who are getting qualified, who are still studying in a way or being qualified. So you had all these different layers. And let's assume the layers are set for legal reasons. They are necessary for compliance. But what I learned back then, even though I didn't understand anything about organizations yet, was that the way the higher ranks behaved had enormous implications for the stations, for the doctors who really did most of the work, for the relationships between doctors and nurses and support staff and other stuff. So everything really depended on how these two upper layers, how they did the job. During the visits, for example, how the superior doctors behaved, how the
attending does the rounds, yeah.
So all these, which are of course patterns, they are enormously influential for the levels of cooperation or the quality of cooperation within the teams in a station, for example, right? The station, let's assume that a station is a cell in cell structure design or in beta. A cell is where the actual work happens. It might be a station or a unit, a diagnostic unit or whatever in a hospital. And then those might be the periphery cells, or maybe the diagnostics units are already in this part of the center and so on. So, but what I'm trying to say is that authority levels or formal structure in itself is not the problem. It's really the way. Can you do everything as a top man or woman, or do you have to restrain yourself? Are you interfering into everybody's business? At BetaCodex, that's forbidden, of course. So nurses have to, in a cell, in a team, have to make their own decisions, organize their work, and there are only several certain, maybe qualification or compliance stuff that's in the hand of others. So, I think this beta doesn't require a revolution in the formal sense, I think, but more in the way we organize work and of course, to make decentralization structural is a very important point. But that doesn't mean throwing out the bosses. It means bosses represent. Bosses take care of compliance. Bosses sign, so-called bosses. They become administrators, managers of the compliance stuff and so on.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make complete sense. I think that the part that I come back to is like in today's in today's command and control organizations is that, and we talked a little bit about this sponsorship, right? Sponsorship for any type of transformational activity, real or otherwise. And I guess we probably say it wasn't real in this context. You need sponsorship from somebody with hierarchical authority. Right, somebody in a position of leadership, right? And so let's say that I was somebody who said, this makes no sense. How we work and what we're doing is getting in the way of actually providing value to our patient, and is getting in the way of organizational performance. And like, okay, maybe things are okay, but we could do even better if we adopted a beta way of working. Right.
We could treat people better and faster, get better outcomes, and
save a lot of money or make more money, depending on what we
all those things, right? And what I would have to do today is put a business plan together, and then go shop that business plan with various potential sponsors, right? Hoping that at some point they would say, yeah, this makes sense. Let's do it. And so the question at the core of my curiosity always, and maybe in our conversation today, is how do we get there? How do we pivot? How do we transform out of into a beta environment when we haven't been
Who's
up
the
to
we?
this point?
Who's the we?
The organization, the entire the collective people that make up groups of people that make up the organization.
How do we get there? Yes. Well, first we believe that transformation is possible and needed, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And
so right.
I think a big helper is to assume. I think that's a part of what you're saying also implies that maybe people do not want beta. I always assume the opposite. Everybody wants beta.
Yep.
Everybody wants beta. Nobody wants alpha. Everybody hates it, even if they do not understand, notice, or recognize it yet. But nobody wants alpha. Everybody wants beta. That makes it all much more possible. By the way, I was reminded during when you said Denver, Colorado, you're one of the best health organizations in maybe in the world, in your city, headquartered in your city, right? You're aware of that? A beta organization.
Which one?
I knocked on their door when I was in Denver the last time. We passed by, and I said, "Oh my God, this is the headquarters of."
My son said, I'm being quizzed.
the company.
DaVita.
Yeah. It's not a bad case. I'm not sure how they are doing today with regards to beta, but they have this radically decentralized model, and very successfully so, I hear.
Yeah.
It's one of those case studies that isn't so well documented in my mind, as far as I know. If you can come up with more information about them, secret stuff. Also.
Yeah. I know a few people who work there. Yes.
And what do they
my
say?
interviews? I think it's interesting, Niels, because it's mixed reviews, right? Because I think some folks, and obviously, some folks are not bought into the way they do things from a cultural perspective, and how do they describe it? Like a community or it's a something like that. Anyway, it's sort of what I've heard on the negative side is it's like if you don't drink the Kool-Aid, it's a tough place to be. I guess we probably shouldn't be saying drink the Kool-Aid, but anyway, that's a direct quote. And then some people love it, absolutely love it. And so,
what I always hear is that American dialysis companies are needlessly killing people, and that DaVita is the first company in the United States. I'm not quite sure about the details, but what I always heard when Europeans, dialysis patients from Europe, travel to America, or people wouldn't travel to America. If you need a dialysis in America, better you don't go there. Because the quality of dialysis in America was crap for a long time. I think DaVita is much better. So there was a quality problem for a long time, a persisting quality problem in dialysis. Of course, I'm no expert because I'm not into the business, but this is something that I heard. Only go to America if your organs. Which organ?
Kidney.
Heart, probably. Kidney.
You're saying
if your kidneys function. Don't go there if you have dysfunctional kidneys. And apparently DaVita is also as successful as it is because they do a better job. Simply do a much better job at dialysis. So thank you for saving lives, DaVita. Not sure about the Kool-Aid thing. Not sure about the implicit.
Well, the Kool-Aid thing. You can phrase it differently. I think the Kool-Aid bit, the Kool-Aid, maybe this whole thing is that there are shared values, that everybody's got to have these values, and that you must value these things. Every person, individual, each of us.
And there is no meritocracy. That might be the thing. No meritocracy at DaVita. I think that's a problem for like some folks wouldn't cherish working at Handelsbanken, bankers at Handelsbanken. You cannot have too much ego. You cannot be too meritocracy driven. You cannot be too, elbow oriented. Otherwise, that's not your kind of bank. You better go to another bank. That might be.
Well, meritocracy that's another topic. Maybe there's disagreement on, I think, but I don't know, necessarily between us. But that one of those demons out there, Mr. Principles guy, a finance guy, that organization that he runs, he is super big on meritocracy, and he goes in this. We have this radical meritocracy. Yeah, the Sith.
Yeah.
So that what kind of meritocracy again are you talking about? And this is, I think, it also gets to social density, where you're saying, do we respect and trust each other enough in this circle, in these cells of cells, and our seam agreements, to say, oh, this is no good. This is not working for us. This is why, and and have deep conversations or really meaningful conversations that get rid of all the bullshit.
No, I'm stuck with. Do we continue? Or do we get back to our topic?
I took you off. So one thing. When you started there, Drew, I had there was something else that came up.
How do we get there? That was Drew's question.
The how question. Well, where is it? It is open space beta, right? What is the deal with open space? I think open space doesn't work when there's not a real flaming hot problem to solve. Right, so that is the first. That's the first thing. If again,
you're talking about open space.
I'm talking about open space. Well, I'm talking about open space in general. Why does open space beta work as well as it does? And I think that also may be when folks have this super huge problem. There's all this pressure in there, and that there's a desire to have the diverse opinions, the potential for conflict, the high degree of complexity, and no one with the answer. Right. So, and those are those criteria for open space. And I think that creates a better container to open space in general, open space technology. And I think, well, what healthcare company here in the US is not minting money, hand over fist? And where's the burning issue in those companies? That some would say that is also in the financial domain. So you ask the how. I say, and my assertion is that that's why open space makes a better container for beta to happen.
Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you say, Ryan, is market conditions are helpful to transformation.
Suffering, a certain degree of suffering is certainly present in the healthcare industry, almost everywhere. Right?
Living in a flaming garbage fire of an organization makes good fertile ground for. But
not just in the US. I mean, we're talking about the whole world, right? England, for example, ruined its NHS, and I see Pride people working at the NHS articulating themselves on LinkedIn all the time. But I'm not sure if they can celebrate too much. Their system stinks of command and control as well, as far as I hear. Hospitals are in a crisis. The commercial hospitals are not nearly as profitable as they should, even also in Germany, for example. Public healthcare is under pressure. So what better conditions in a way could exist for healthcare to change? But it's not happening. And that's one of the questions, right? Why is it not happening? Why this lack of belief in transformation in healthcare, even though there are these great cases like arguably Davita Bozorg in the Netherlands, or from the Netherlands, or in 10 or 15, 20 countries, I think, almost already. So why the difficulty? Why are we not going there? And of course, from our point of view, open space beta, any organization can do it in 6 months. So any organization can transform.
Yeah, and I think this gets back to the question of what's water, and I think that it's helpful to talk about topics like this because that starts to share different ideas, and so when somebody gets to the point of saying, like, we've tried everything, why don't we just let the people who are having the problem solve it? Somebody's there to say, that's exactly what we're looking to do. That's exactly what we're hoping to do. And here's a method.
Yeah. If somebody, I love it when somebody says, we've tried everything. I would ask, what have you tried? Oh, the last thing we tried was OKRs. Well, then you didn't try everything. You're still dabbling with command and control. You're still trying the same shit.
Yeah.
Drinking the same Kool-Aid or whatever it is.
I like the Freudian slip where you trying the shame shit, not the same shit.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. So all these tools, these feds, are all command and control, right? Some circles, some holacracy, some more incentives, less incentives, more budgeting, more cost management, different flavor of cost management. It's all the same. It's 50 shades of command and control. So that's what they've tried, right? And now they've optimized the wrong system. That's the point, right? You only get so far by optimizing the wrong system. And if you talk about maturity levels, you're talking about consciously desisting of transformation and saying, no, we can only optimize because we are hopeless. That's what all this. Are we really? We are not there yet. Do we have the maturity? Do our people have the maturity to self-organization, decentralization, Toyota Bozar? Or shall we just optimize, which is safer?
Yeah.
And optimization isn't safer. It's just
same
shit, better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And if it's shit, it's shit. That wasn't brilliantly framed. That was you are the American.
You're making a shitty system better, right? And instead of making a better system. So we're approaching the top of the hour here in a few minutes. So do we want to get back into, again, we talked about just making the shitty system better or making a better system. And
work the system instead of working in the system, right? That's part of this distinction. Optimization versus transformation. Working in the system, working on the system. Brilliant. Yes.
And the people aren't the problem.
People aren't the problem. That's our motto. Yes. The system is usually. Unless you are already Toyota, then but then still you have to work the system. That's the secret, right? That's why we call it beta, because you always have to work the system. Drew, you look flabbergasted or something?
No, I'm not flabbergasted. I think what I'm reflecting on the fact that you invite a guest onto the episode, and and I've got 10 years of reading Niels' stuff and reading, and so I'm taking the conversation in all these different directions. When what we got together today to talk about was transformation and optimization, and I think for me, like what you said there helped me unlock. This was a little bit ago when you say, I assume that everybody wants beta, and I think that's what McGregor would say too, right? That's what is it that's what Follett would say. Is that how you pronounce her name? I've only read about it.
Mary Parker Follett.
Mary Parker Follett.
Yeah, Follett. Yeah.
Yes, I'm thinking about if she would have said it too. I think that's what every humanist would say, right?
Yeah.
It seems trivial, but when I you might have seen this elsewhere, Drew, but I always like to say every person, every human in this world deserves democracy too, and is fit for democracy. Some people do not think they want democracy, but they still deserve it and want it secretly, Yeah. They just do not know. Some are fascists, but they still deserve democracy in a way, to tame their flawed instincts and So democracy is better for everyone. It's a no losers game, while authoritarianism, alpha, is a everybody loses game.
Yep.
And this idea, it's very. I think that idea of freedom is not even a choice. That's another very interesting topic I think we could discuss. Freedom, if you accept that it's a given, you cannot even resist it or quit. Yeah, you can only suffer from your lack of acceptance of freedom, and it's very similar, I think, in organizations. Alpha doesn't work, and you can reject beta and say it will not work, but then you have to accept the suffering. You will suffer the consequence from not accepting it into your organization. And I think that's where most corporations stand, right? And all this dabbling, it's just another way of not even alleviating the suffering of enduring it. Most of the coaching, I think, was always only helping managers to handle the suffering.
Do alpha better.
But not to change anything. Yeah, do alpha better, or to endure it more in a way, which is interesting. Yeah, the dabbling, the optimization, it can be totally crippling and optimization of suffering. Yeah, if the system needs to change, and our point has been all the time, our societies are democratic, the markets are complex, human nature is what it is, so organizations should be beta. It's as simple. It's as simple as a formula can be. Yeah. Still, we have this difficulty of overcoming alpha systems. True.
Yeah, we are in absolute agreement, and I think that the discussion about market conditions is very helpful here, because while the market conditions inside the organization might be begging for beta, the external market conditions are not going to allow it, because optimization continues to produce value to into the external market, right? And does it?
Okay.
I think so. I think in
Well,
profits.
there you go. That an organization that is alpha, running very effectively, is producing profit. And that profit, where does that profit go once it's produced in an alpha organization? It would go to those who are incentivized to create a better alpha organization so they can have more profit, right? So this is where if you accept the beta principle around this release of incentivization, individual incentivization, then the value creation happens more. Value creation, but how do you define value? But the incentive is for the individual to thrive and rise and affiliate with those who are also of high status. So that's my position there, and why I would think that it's not value, it's more profit that keeps this or mono maximization. How about that?
I thought in a different direction, but maybe I misunderstood you, Drew. Did you really say something that alpha is producing enough profitability, so there's no need to change, or the market doesn't want beta because alpha is successful in delivering profit? Is that what you said?
I think that alpha produces satisfying profits to external stakeholders. That there is not then a call to explore alternative organizing methods. That was very academic framing, but hopefully it made it a little bit clearer.
Yeah, but maybe it's incorrect, I wonder.
Yeah. Hey, at least I got a maybe, Ryan. I got a maybe. It's incorrect. I think
that's my video avatar speaking.
Yeah.
It's not me.
That's the deep fake Niels, who was trained by something else.
This is just AI.
And to be, I'm open to being incorrect on this, which is the reason why I said yes to coming on, because I knew that I would walk away having learned much in discussion with the two of you.
Let's turn your argument around for a second to test it. Let's assume for a moment that alpha will guarantee you that you get inferior results to what's possible. It's just that
it's a good frame.
In an industry where every organization is alpha, you will not notice.
Yeah.
Because comparatively, everybody sucks, So you will only notice the difference between the power of an alpha or a beta system if they compete directly with each other, like Toyota and Volkswagen. If you really look at the numbers, you see that Toyota is thriving financially in every sense of, in every meaning. And Volkswagen is suffering. Still, this is not publicly acknowledged. It hardly interests anyone in automotive or beyond, because people that's what Deming said so beautifully. Nobody gives a hoot about profit.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't care about profit enough. Sadly, regrettably, we don't care about profit enough. Alpha is guaranteed. It is guaranteed that alpha will give you inferior results.
Yeah.
And because it's so inefficient, because you don't put all the minds to work, you get afford the luxury of having so much bureaucracy and planning and centralized steering, which is all unnecessary. No, right?
But that requires thinking and feeling and compassion on the part of those who are in positions of authority and who are swimming in the water of alpha, that bloody water. So this is, and that's the point. I don't know what to say to that.
Today, Ryan, you managed to confuse me.
Well,
Drew, can you jump in and help us?
I want to give Ryan the opportunity to get this out. It feels important to him.
Okay.
No, I'll riff on whatever's there.
No. What? Maybe I just didn't get the point, really, Ryan.
Oh no, I was saying that you're saying everybody or people don't care enough about profit. That we don't care enough about profit, and who the fuck is the we, right? And this
nobody
is
in alpha. In alpha, nobody gives a hoot about hoot is shit, right? Nobody gives a shit about profit.
The shareholders, the folks who do share buybacks, the folks
they don't give a shit about profits either.
Well, what
if they would, they would opt for having beta transfer.
So maybe it's revenue. That is, so there's enough revenue for me to buy my $36 million mansion in the Hamptons.
No.
Well, but people do that. That's what happens. That's the reality of that world. I'm not saying it's a just world or a right world, but the reality is that there are the Hamptons, there is Bel Air, there is probably a suburb of Denver that where people are buying large houses, and the reason they buy large houses
is a city called Boulder.
Oh, that's right, Boulder.
Yeah, I get, this is like a Nielsism, I think, where it's like if they cared about profit, then we'd all be working in beta systems, right? That's the point.
It's rational. Yeah. The rational choice would be beta. If you really cared about making shitloads of money, you would opt for beta. Exactly. Cost management is so dumb. Budgeting is so dumb. Having huge centralized departments, having all these layers of hierarchy, all this steering, it's all wasteful. So if I want profit, really, I should bureaucratize what Bill Anderson is saying for Bayer currently, right?
Yeah.
Bayer, yeah.
Bayer.
Yeah. He says we have of course they are not profitable enough at this point, and he says we have way too much hierarchy, all this steering, all this functional division. It doesn't work. We must have DSO, decentralized. Repeat ultimately,
yep.
and that's a reasonable way to get to profit. We want profit, yep. profit. I mean, then an organization can say, okay, we are a pharmaceutical organization. We shouldn't have 20% of margin. We should just have 10. So let's lower the prices a little bit. Let's be social as well. I'm not talking about profit maximization, but if you want to have an organization that's highly competitive, you should have a beta organization. It's the only reasonable way. Alpha is shit. No?
Of course,
that's how I talk to clients. That's how I talk to my clients.
Yeah, and you're talking from a very deep conviction and a belief in all of these things, and from reason
and science, and everybody else.
But you're talking at this level with someone who's unreasonable and unreasonable who doesn't know what you know.
If you do budgeting, you're unreasonable. If you have these layers of you are unreasonable. Yeah.
I believe in budgeting and I believe in incentives because I benefit from those things.
No, I don't. Everybody loses.
If you're a definition of benefit is I have more money in my pocket to do more than I can do to have affiliation with the folks who have more status, so I can do more things that I've been trained to do, and I've been swimming in the water for so long.
Yeah, but in beta you can still pay your salespeople like kings, or everybody like kings, and you can pay people even more kingier than before, because your overall organization will be much more.
Well, I believe what you believe, right? It's important to I believe what you believe, and I want what you want for that environment that the world deserves beta, right? That's a belief. That other folks, right? So however we define the other, but that because not everybody knows about, they don't have the opportunity to believe. And that's not their fault. So I think you're saying that it's a belief that everybody wants beta. How can you want something you don't know exists?
But people can know it exists. It's not an unknown.
Yes.
It's not difficult to understand. So
it is. Yeah. It's okay.
Well, I think isn't this my where's water or what's water?
Exactly.
It's the where's. And I think
it's totally where's water.
It's so interesting to me that we can use arguments of profitability on both sides of this argument, and perhaps we know which one's right, of course, but both sides are using the same arguments about profitability from that perspective.
Companies need to be profitable.
That's the way to do it. Yeah.
Except if they are not for profits, they need profit to exist.
That is also true.
Yeah. So, and that's, I think, very essential to understanding beta. It's not chaos. It's not disorder. It's not anti-capitalist. It's the most capitalist of things. Toyota, Handelsbanken, Burzak, even Davita. I'm not sure about their numbers, but they are probably much better than the competitions. Yeah. That's one of the reasons why they grow, why they acquire. Burzak also. They're just much more competitive, and that's part of. In a beta system, you can be much more cost efficient, without managing cost and so on. So
it's a solid argument, a very solid argument.
So we need to overcome the systems to create more profitable, more competitive organizations. To make America great again, we need that was just. I think I missed. I think I got confused.
Yeah, that might be an alpha argument. Yeah.
No, but it's a big thing in Germany too. To say, we have such. Ryan, I know we have to finish this.
A couple minutes, yeah.
Okay, a couple of minutes more. And this is a great thing whenever I work with Swiss companies, for example, they tell me, everything is so expensive here. To pay people is so expensive. We should outsource everything to India. But the secret of beta is, if you have a beta organization, you can source everything back from China and India, everywhere, to your own country, because it becomes much more, much more effective, unreasonably effective, incredibly efficient. That's, I think, what the Toyota case also shows so brilliantly, or Burzak or Handelsbanken. They all show that wherever you are, you can be highly effective, much more profitable, or have much lower prices, be much more competitive. In the case of Burzak, it's not about profits, it's also about lowering the cost of home care in the whole country. That's what they already achieved in the Netherlands, to drive down everybody's cost of healthcare at home, which is an incredible feat, an incredible social feat. And I think we must go there. We must look at this whole power discussion, which we started during our session today, right? Managers losing their power. I think it's not helpful. We should have this other discussion. What can we do to make the world better? What kind of system do we have to run to make the world a much better place, regardless if we are a bank or produce cars or mobility or health care,
or high volume consumer goods,
or high volume consumer goods. Yes, as our last open space beta client. Yes.
I've got a quote here I want to bring in, because you talked about reasonability, and I think this may be an interesting place to end.
It's a call for scientific thinking as well, this beta thing. No? Drew, you have something to add before Ryan kicks in with his quote?
Well, if it's the end, I do. But I think
we are towards the end. Yes,
we are towards. Yeah, and I think that I know it's a very reasonable argument to make. If you want the world to be a better place, we should encourage more beta organizations.
That's what we want to do. Yeah. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man. George Bernard Shaw, American poet, I think. Yes. American? Yeah,
I think so.
Wonderful quote. Yes. And we in a way, sticking with alpha is trying to adapt
reasonable
world to stupidity.
The argument is that it is reasonable. People will come back and say, this is going beta is unreasonable. It is unreasonable because we lose control. People aren't ready for this. People don't want this decision. People aren't ready to confront their freedom. But that's not true. And that's the point. So be unreasonable. Be more unreasonable.
Yes. Yes. And adapt to the world, of course, instead of fighting the world, fighting complexity, denying complexity. Overcome the system to be appropriate within a world that has already changed, No?
Yes.
Yes.
True. Final words. Yeah. We'll close this, but I suggest
I think
we set up another session.
I think a round 2 would be
and maybe then we can actually dive into our subject a little bit more.
That would be Optimize Transform 2.
Yeah, I so much enjoyed the spicy conversation and
Transformer else
and Transformer else and learning with the two of you. It was a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, then let's agree on that. We do another session. Transformer else. I think that's a great title. Let's do it again. Yes.
Sounds great.
I agree. Well,
Yeah.
gentlemen, Transformer Else, part 2 of this lovely exchange and repartee between
Great.
myself, Niels, and Drew.
Let's arrange a little bit more time. I think we are great at deviating together. So
Yes.
thank you very much. This was fun. Ryan, you're the host. Thank you for hosting. And your famous last words?
Be unreasonable.
Yes.
Thanks everybody for your time and attention. Check you out next time on BetaCodex Live. See you again soon.
Bye, Drew. Bye, Ryan.
See ya. Thank you.